Hi girls, how are you? I just thought I'd talk you through some of these sources. The task asks you to analyse source 1, the source named the Constitution of the Roman Republic, or titled I should say, titled the Constitution of the Roman Republic, the source titled Assembly, and source 2, this picture down the bottom, and you're going to use those to answer the question as to how much power the plebeians had, to what extent did they exercise power in ancient Rome. So you've got that question. The plebeians are the lower class Romans. So they're the ordinary people, and the patricians, there are much fewer of them. They have wealth, they have power, they have privilege, very different circumstances. But they all participated in governing Rome in different ways. Now, we talked about the fact that in Rome, at first, there were monarchies. That meant that there were kings. So there was rule by one person. Now, eventually, the monarchs were overthrown. Then we've got something called the Roman Republic, where it was a kind of a democracy. It was a form of democracy in that you've got different groups of people participating in government. So they get a say in different ways. So what this source work question is asking you to do is to think about what each of these sources suggest about how much power the plebeians actually had in the ancient Roman Republic. Now, all of these sources are secondary sources, which means that they were produced much later than the time that we're studying, which is that of the Roman Republic. Okay, so when was the Roman Republic? By the end of the 4th century BCE, before the Common Era or before the birth of Christ. So we're, the 20th century, we're CE. So that's the Common Era or after the birth of Christ. Okay, this is a long time ago, many centuries. So we're talking about the Roman Republic. Okay, so let's have a look at what each of these sources suggest about the plebeians. Okay, so source 1, yes, it's a summary of the powers that different people had, what they could do, and it's focused on the Roman Republic. So it's talking about the constitution. That means the rules that the government had. Okay, so 4 assemblies of the people. Okay, so the people are the plebeians, and they did have assemblies. Okay, if we go down to here, the tribunes. So the tribunes were the elected representatives of the plebeians. Okay, so this is telling us that there was this thing called assemblies where the people could gather together, they would pass laws, etc. And the person who represented the plebeians was the tribune. So these were called the plebeian tribunes. So I'm reading here that they had the power to overrule any other official. Right. So the plebeians had to rely on the tribunes, but the tribunes had a lot of power. That's what source 1 is telling us. Okay, what we're going to do now, okay, yes, we'll look at the Constitution of the Roman Republic. By the end of the 4th century BCE, the key features of the Roman constitution were well established, so they had all the rules of government, although they relied on traditional practices. Okay. Officials could overrule a colleague of equal rank or an official of lower rank. Okay, get this. And the tribunes could overrule anyone. So these are the representatives of the plebeians. What we are learning through Source 1 and the Constitution of the Roman Republic is that the plebeians' main access to power was, or any form of power, was through their representatives, the tribunes. Maybe they didn't have a lot of power as individual. They really didn't have much power at all individually. But if their tribune was doing a good job for them, they did get to participate in government. Okay, now we're going to have a look at these two sources, the one that's headed assemblies. Even during the regal period, the Roman people gathered in assemblies. The assemblies were occasions to bring together adult male citizens. So sorry, no females. The assemblies tended to be opportunities for those already in power to reinforce their positions of authority. Okay, that's saying that the patricians, so the upper class people, the people that already had the power, were using the assemblies to gain things for themselves, to gain status, gain a reputation, climb the little career ladder. So it is, this particular source is not emphasizing the fact that the plebeian tribunes were really important. Now look at this source, source 2. So it's showing the tribune of the plebs proposing a law before the common people. So I want you to look at the way this is set out. So we've got the tribune of the plebs up here. Okay, we've got other officials up here as well. And then we've got the ordinary people down here. Now this is a secondary source because it was not produced by an artist at the time of the Roman Republic. This has been created by a modern artist to capture something about the past. And if we look at the layout, we've got the officials standing up here at the top and the ordinary people are down the bottom. So it's symbolising the fact that the plebeians don't have a lot of power. They're really dependent on officials to give them a fair go, any kind of fair go, if that makes sense. So yes, they could participate in government, but look, these people have so much more power. So if we're going to sum it up, we've got Source 1 and the Constitution of the Roman Republic are really emphasising the fact that the tribune of the plebeians was an important role and the plebeians could participate in government through their tribune. We have this statement here that I would certainly quote from it in source work. Officials could overrule a colleague of equal rank, blah, blah, blah. The tribunes could overrule anyone. That is what I would quote. The tribunes could overrule anyone. So the tribunes were the representatives of the ordinary people. Okay, this particular source is emphasising patrician power. Remember, the patricians were the upper class Romans, and this particular source is representing the power of the officials. So the officials had much more power than these ordinary people that are down the bottom here. So your source work is basically asking you to analyse these sources, and so to what extent did the plebeians participate in decision making? You would really, well, two sources are saying, hey, you know, that they did get to participate through their representative. And then we've got two sources that are highlighting the power of the patricians. So what you would have to do, a question that's asking you to what extent, it's like asking you to what degree. Are you going to say absolutely they had 100% power? Or are you going to say, well, they had significant power or substantial power, But there were definite limits. You know, there were other people that had greater power. And girls, as we've got different perspectives coming through those secondary sources, I don't think you can say that the plebeians had enormous power. They absolutely exercised power. They had all the power that they wanted. No, I don't think you're going to be able to argue that at all. I think really you're going to have to say, well, they had substantial power, but there were definite limits on this power. Um, you know, they had significant power in that they had a plebeian tribune to represent them, but other officials tended to dominate in the assemblies when the people gathered, and they really got to make a lot of the decisions. One thing I didn't mention, and I should have mentioned it, where it says the people of the plebeian tribunes, had the power to overrule any other official, that is called veto. Okay? And veto is a term that is used in the close exercise, and it is a word that highlights the power of the plebeian tribune, because it means that they could even overrule one of the two consuls, consuls, and they were the two most powerful leaders in the Roman Republic. So that's it from me now. I hope this is helpful, girls. Okay, bye for now.